JackeyLove on the Ezreal again, or give Karsa something that has priority. But again, we forgot Lee Sin exists, so put him in a solo lane as most likely with top esports. Remember, Karsa also a huge Lee Sin player, so this is technically a triple flex.
Yeah, and I love that they're able to keep that going. Now, they could opt in for just a standard AP jungler or the Ezreal pick themselves here if they'd like to play for their solo laners here. And they're just going to go for some great early engage right here with the Udyr. He gets a fast clear in the jungle. Very hard to keep up with him. But the instant Aphelios and Thresh locked in. And we are playing on 11.11, so no Aphelios buffs yet.
Yeah, and the fact that he's still getting buffs when there's players in the LPL like SMLZ, JackeyLove still willing to pick him up, are still in a decent position, especially when Thresh is let through. A champion that once upon a time teams would not want anyone to touch. Tells us that top esports want to put a bit of priority in that 2v2, put JackeyLove and Zhuo in a better position, and improve the performance that they've been having within this laning phase.
Yeah, and then the final pick to come through is going to be that Nautilus. A bit of a debated matchup, really, with the Nautilus into Thresh. Some people feel like Nautilus is fine into Thresh, and some players just feel like the Thresh have the other hand. I think it kind of comes down to execution with the hooks and how you want to play the lane. In this situation, I think it's still doable for the Nautilus. You're able to hook yourself out of the hook. You're able to just wait for that mid game when you really want the spike to come through with the Ezreal. But now, with a lot of bot-heavy picks coming through from the side of both teams, really, a lot of solo laners are starting to be banned out here. And TT, with the bans that are coming through here, Akali out of the way, no, not Akali out of the way, LeBlanc out of the way, Volibear out of the way, they could look for an Akali in the mid lane here if they wanted to. Yeah,
on the tip of your tongue, the Akali, you said it. I'd also say for TT, someone like could look at something like the Zoe. We've seen a lot of LPL Zoes, and I think with the Ezreal also prioritizes getting some of that poke laid down. So curious in what direction TT put down here, because they've got the Jayce instead. They leave the potential flex up there. The last counter pick for red side, will be the last choice.
And they also give it a bit of poke with their composition already. Now you have the Ezreal, now you have the Jayce. So when you're sitting on two items and you get to that sieging point of the game, if you are having a favorable map state, that is going to be a really nice situation for you. But with the Akali being up, it's just going to be locked over to the side of top esports, and a lot of power picks to come through as well. Xin Zhao, a champion we've seen loads on towards this patch and also the next common patch. It's just a really strong early skirmishing jungler as well.
Something that can get a lot done, right? So it's bottom lane, it's mid if that's Knight's Akali coming through. There are so many lanes that you can find priority in here if your casts are in at least impact in the early game. So Ryze, I like the defensive pick here, something that has part of the global pressure alongside this Ezreal, where they can react to top esports, trying to get the ball rolling early on.
It's an interesting comp coming in from the side of TT, especially when they're playing it out against top esports. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure onto Xiaopeng in the early game, just due to the nature of the matchup between Xin Zhao. You have a way faster clear than this champion, and this clear speed that you have needs to be kind of fulfilled to the utmost as well. You need to make sure that you don't lose out on scuttle skirmishes this time around. You need to make sure that if you have any prio in any lane, you should be able to gain some pressure from that, either to threaten dives or to come in and set up deep vision to get control of the early game, to kind of get those items rolling onto the sides of your carry. And then obviously on the other side, for the side of top esports, you're just looking for this outplay potential. You have a lot of dive potential. Once again, we've kind of twisted the team come from last game around, where now with the Akali, now with the Lee Sin, now with the Xin Zhao, it's very easy for this team comp to just dive into the backlines of the enemy AD carries.
That's right, and similar to what TT put in game one, of course, there's different elements to it, I feel like, with the Aphelios, the Thresh, but you have yourself decent engage, and I think the important part you pulled out is there is some of that essential dogpiling once again here on Summoner's Rift, but hitting the angles with Akali, hitting the angles that you set up with Xin Zhao as well, and then Aphelios for the cleanup and the fight. So for top esports here, something that has been run before, when you look at Knight on something so volatile, when you look at JackeyLove and Zhuo having agency in lane, and QingTian on this Lee Sin, he had a great set game number one. I love when we change up drafts here, Guldbord. I love that top esports are going to show us something completely different from game one. And TT, you put it on the back of Xiaopeng. Let's see if he can hold off top esports from elevating this game. Welcome back to Summoner's Rift, swapping sides and starting off with QingTian getting beaten down a little bit.
Yeah, getting beaten down in early game. Last game, we actually saw that it was QingTian who was this far up into the blue side to get some early vision down, but TT kind of adapts to the situation and learns from how Top Esports played in the beginning. And that's what I love. I love that we have series in the LPL. Now, I've come from the ADC. I've been at the European Masters. That is fabled for not having best of threes before. And, you know, I love getting to see series in between teams. I love that we can see the adaptation, both in compositions, but also how they learn from the first game they played against each other. It's not a consideration that many people take into the context of a best of three, but it usually matters a lot when it comes down to it.
Well, I've always loved the format. I love Mr. Worldwide here giving the perspective as well. You got that perspective of LEC, right? And I feel like LEC's always been in the conversation as the region that is most like the LPL outside of the league that we're witnessing here. So it'll be interesting to get your opinion throughout the day. I do want to more index into what we're talking about in Pick and Ban, though. You mentioned this game is going to be on Xiaopeng, so I want you to tell me why, as the second comes through with a flay, as to how Xiaopeng needs to start this game off and where we should be keeping our eyes.
Well, you can already see it on the clear speed right now. Xiaopeng, if you take a look onto the minimap, already onto the Wolves where Karsa just now finished his camp. So what you usually see a lot on Xin Zhao is that you need to skip camps to make sure that you can be at the same spot in the map at the same time as this Udyr. So I kind of like the fact that as they go in for another skirmish down towards the spot side of the map, very aggressive.
Patch is in trouble. There's flash available for JackeyLove, and you know he'll take it any other day of the week, but we didn't get to see the dredge line, whether it's coming back up and available. It is there now with Titan's Wrath, so JackeyLove not going to fully commit, not going to overcommit, and Zhuo just burns the Ignite while Sam D has to use heal.
Yeah, this can be very scary for them, though, just because they're slow pushing in towards the bot side here. You can see JackeyLove only last hitting now, doesn't want them to go too far back yet. But obviously, it is an Ezreal. It's very easy for him to lane from afar. And yeah, I love this. Just trust. You can see Zhuo stepping in front of the cannon, making sure the Ezreal Q cannot connect. So they're using the most of their pressure they can down towards this bottom side of the map. Now, up towards the junglers as well to continue the conversation. You can kind of see that now Xiaopeng already finished with his full clear, and you take a look at Karsa, not even made his way up towards or down towards the Crocs yet. I'd love to see when we get towards the first resets, both from the mid lane and from the junglers as well, that starts to use this pressure he has in the mid lane to move it into a side lane to facilitate either the bot lane or the top side of the map as they continue with more skirmishes down towards the bot lane.
I mean, a strong 2v2. We talked about this for JackeyLove and Zhuo, a completely different lane as to what we saw last time with the Ezreal Brom, and Karsa trying to impact that. A lane that has so much CC. Sam D's only level 2 at 15 CS. He doesn't want to miss this wave.
Yeah, pushing mid fast from the side of he needs to move down immediately.
And here comes Karsa, level 4. TP is the response. The Dark Passage taken, flash away from JackeyLove, but he's just cornered himself with Xiaopeng. No flash available. He knows he's dying. He wants to take Patch with him. That's a 4-man Gravitum, but death is the name. It's TT with first blood.
Yeah, I love the response. If Zhuo can stop this recall, that'd be absolutely crucial, because then Langx is going to lose a lot of resources. You can take a look onto QingTian towards the top side of the map, just shoving in a stacked wave. So that's going to be a lot of gold that he's losing out. So yes, they get the first blood, but Top Esports also make a response towards the top side of the map, where they kind of trade even on it. But it also comes down to the fact, had to push in, TP'd back. He was able to move through just because Xiaopeng has been in towards the mid lane and pushed Knight outside of the lane. So while Knight TP'd back to lane to pick up a wave that was shoved in, was just able to walk down towards the bottom lane and accelerate some of this pressure. So as we talked about, whenever you have pressure in a lane, you kind of need to use that to facilitate something. Either to go into the enemy jungle to get some vision onto towards the camp so you can create skirmishes around this Udyr, or to facilitate a side lane where you can get your members ahead.
But meanwhile on bottom, let's have a quick look at the pro view, because this was a dive onto Sam D. He hits level 3, but JackeyLove, I guess the lantern was for him.
Rest in peace. I mean, there's really not much to do here. As soon as the lantern is already taken, as soon as he's flashed out, no. I mean, you just caught between a rock and a hard place.
That's rough. I mean, it was a well set up dive. They drew in the TP, but because of the kill going over, you mentioned topside was able to push in QingTian, but Langx has been able to keep up in farm. Of course, he did push in the wave, so I should recalibrate what I just said and say he's down by about 7-8 CS, about a wave here, a little bit more. But bottom side, they were able to get the assist. The top kill went over, which means lethality early here for Langx versus the pickaxe. So there is now a lot of damage on this Jayce. And I'm curious if TT start looking towards the top side. Xiaopeng, who we mentioned as well, who's going to have a big game ahead of him, if he tries and pushes down QingTian or accelerate Langx even further.
I definitely think you can look to do that, just because you already have the Ezreal down towards the bottom side of the map. So as soon as Xiaopeng starts his full clear down towards his bottom side of the map and moves up towards the top side of the map, I'd expect them to see them try and get some mid lane pressure, just so they can move the Ryze up together with his ultimate. Stacked Wave is coming in through the bottom side of the map here, and with Knight moving down for the mid lane, it could be looking like they're trying to set up a dive as well. Remember, no TP this time around, and 4 members are moving in towards the bot lane.
Good arcane shift there from Sandy to dodge away. Knight has himself the perfect execution, but Karsa does not have his ulti available. And because that Crescent Guard is not there, let's see how we go. Realm Warp in. Dark Passage once again. 5 members down the bottom lane. As QingTian TP'd in. Good kick though. But where's the damage? The follow-up needs to come through from Karsa and Knight, but they don't make their way in. And Langx didn't have TP. He couldn't join if he wanted to, so he'll get something right back.
I really think that was overforced. I really think that was a bad TP as well for the Lee Sin, because there was essentially, it was not a flank TP ward, it was you TP'd in front of them and they're just able to back off. I think what Top Esports could have done with that pressure instead was just be like, alright, we forced them back towards their towers, we have all the priority, we can just get a free Drake. But instead you kind of sacrifice the small lead your top laner got, and he's now essentially losing 2 waves up there.
It's just funny though, with Top Esports having 5 bot in the end, Karsa still picks up the dragon, he gets the objective kill, which means first on the board here to go Infernal next. I think it's also important to note that every time Top Esports have come down, sure, while that was a big overcommit overtime you talked about, we've got a 20 CS lead for JackeyLove, so technically it's kind of working here.
I mean, yeah, they are definitely using it to starve, but you're right. But I think you could do that with just the pressure as well. It's something we see a lot of. I think Rogue is one of the teams that actually likes to do it as well from the LEC to my experience, where you just kind of push in the mid lane, you just move into the fog of war to answer that bot side of the map, and you just kind of threaten the idea of a dive, so they have to back off, but Knight and company just taking it a step further with the aggression. So not full EU, more like classic LPL here. And they're actually moving the entire bot side of the map up towards this Herald play. I'm not really sure I like this from the side of TT. Yes, they can secure this with the pressure, but they're being shoved. They're being put a lot of resources into JackeyLove towards the bottom side of the map.
Oh, he's going to have Crescendum as well. Watch the camera pan down and he's got the right weapons. I told you, Severin Crescendum is the perfect combo for taking down turrets. And they're full committing as well. This is going to be turret for turret trade, but watch JackeyLove. It's about to begin as he Qs down. That turret's no longer for the world, and TT might get first turret blood, but all the gold of Top Esports is going to be on an Aphelios, who will definitely have a mythic when he makes his first back.
Yeah, it's kind of like JackeyLove is going for my plating on the side of TT. It's like our plating instead here. But you can clearly see through. Of course, it makes more sense in terms of the whole team getting more gold combined with getting the first turret. But when you have a game plan where the AD carry is also someone you can play for with this Aphelios, there's just way more gold getting individually injected into that carry member. And you kind of have to split the resources from the side of TT instead.
He's close to taking down this bottom turret. We ran out of Crescendum, so it feels like that slowed him down a little bit. But wave will be cleared once more. 30 CS will turn into 40 CS as Sam D moves to the mid lane to match Knight for now alongside Patch. Bottom turret actually won't go down. Yeah, it comes through as well. So that's okay for TT. But at the end of the day, JackeyLove, look at the gold on your screen. He's 1,000 up over TT. And that's why gold's still even despite first turret blood.
Yeah, needs to be a bit careful. Does have flash as well.
Oh, he's marked. Straight over the wall. There goes Karsa. Realm Warp. Meanwhile, yeah, he doesn't go into it. Tries to ruse it, but Knight was never going to commit there as well. Flashes kept. Yeah's lost, and Karsa and Knight managed to get themselves a nice invade.
Yeah, but having a flash down on a composition like TT's going in against Top Esports composition, that's so much about this stockpiling that I feel like is the word of the day for our really cast so far. Can be very scary. Now, Lantern is just going to get him out to safety, and with 2 minutes onto the next Drake, it's just going to be about putting your bot lane into the mid lane. Make sure that you always have infinite push here so you can just move around the map wherever you want to. Set up the vision control for the next objective and make sure that you're in a position where you are able to punish if they step up when you start the objective.
As we'll watch, because, yeah, might be in that position earlier than expected. I think Zhuo and JackeyLove making their way around, but spotted out on the ward for now. Good wave clear here from the early game Ryze as Karsa moves down as well. Minute 30 till that objective actually spawns up too. It's worth noting that JackeyLove should have the mythic item by then. He's at 104 CS versus 74. Also want to note that QingTian at 111 CS at 11 minutes. He's actually done not too bad considering that he teleported bot and missed a couple of waves.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like just in general, this does not feel like a game where we're only 11 minutes into it. Just because of the flow of it. You see how willing they are to rotate around, though Karsa might have rotated too far forward.
Oh, get to it. The flash from Xiaopeng. Dark Passage works out in the end. Patch tries to interrupt. He was close as True Shot barrage. The heal timing from JackeyLove. And thankfully, the Guardian from Zhuo. Karsa went super deep, and it looks like his support bailed him out.
Yeah, and due to the timing of that invade as well, he can still get a reset through and be ready for the Drake that spawns in 30 seconds. He's actually going to be a bit greedy. You can see he doesn't want to lose out on the efficient pathing, so he's going to clear his top side of the map before he actually goes for the recall. Of
course, like all good junglers here in the LPL, he'll be moving back to the bottom lane, TP through the mid lane here for Knight.
He's just gonna heal with the smite onto the camps.
And that's fair. I mean, he still has his flash as well, but ulti won't be available for this next fight. JackeyLove and Zhuo, though, making a play right in front of it. Here comes Graviton with the Moonlight Vigil. Flayed into range. Death Sentence, it feels like. Yeah, getting some splash damage down. But it's JackeyLove with the bigger gun. Down goes mid laner, and with 1 second till Dragon, Karsa's going to get a free Drake.
Yeah, yes, thought he could step up forward. He just saw Knight back, but didn't anticipate the bot lane rotations to come through. And I kind of want to take it back to that. I talked about this flow of the game between these two teams is so entertaining to watch. They're never stationary in one lane. They're always moving with their waves. They're always making sure that if there's something they can get on the map, they'll try and do it. And even the cross maps from TT now, you can see, all right, they're investing a lot of resources on towards the Drake. We're just going to put our man advantage and use it towards the top side of the map instead. But once again, when you show yourself topside, you're going to lose something on the bot side. So they're losing out on the Drake, they're losing out on a turret, and they're going to be losing out on camps. And then you get their response. They're like, all right, we're going to counter jungle you. So I like the fact that there's always something proactive going on between these two teams.
Yeah, it's the early game we talked about from TT that we highlighted. Feels like their best strength. Top esports as well, we know that their laning phase has always been their greatest victory, or at least their greatest strength, I should say, in the past. JackeyLove and Zhuo, you can see now mythic item here on the Aphelios as well. He traded off on the bottom lane turret that we saw in the reverse play, was able to get the item over the line, plus a cloak of agility. And even Knight, I mean, I feel at this point, as he backs here in the bottom lane, should be getting towards mythic items as well. So Guldbord, we are getting those first item here for top esports a little bit earlier than TT, considering that, yeah, it's not towards the Ludens or rather the Everfrost, which we know we're going to see. So I'm curious if top esports try and force something here or look for another pick again with that two-man roaming squad we've seen out of Knight and Karsa.
I definitely say top esports champion spikes harder than on their first items as well. We talked a bit about it in draft as well. TT, you kind of need those two items to come through, just because your three carries right now are very reliant of getting their Tear of the Goddess items stacked up. So Ryze still looking to get that tier stacked and the components for Seraph's Embrace. The same can be said for Langx and Sam D, where they're still waiting for that more mana as well. So it's going to take some time before they're really at their peak in terms of damage, but they're doing a good job at just never handshaking fights from the side of top esports. Once again, they're just moving on towards a side lane where they won't start a skirmish whatsoever, although they could look for it in mid lane.
I mean, they almost traded up. Here comes the TP in the backline, though. That's double TP, ladies and gentlemen. Yan Langx into the middle of the fight. Flash away immediately. Langx's just dead. Everyone from top esports, the target selection once more as TT now outnumbered. Everyone jumping forward. Karsa jumps in. The Crescent Slash destroys TT, and Thunder Talk now have nothing more to say. Knight into the back, a smooth criminal that Michael Jackson would be proud of as Zhuo sends out a death sentence. And a death sentence it was for TT.
Yeah, we literally just talked about how top esports one item spike is stronger than TT's, and then TT just decided to say, you know what, we're just going to double TP in towards them. Have you ever heard about the flanking Ryze and Jayce? No? Well, I think the outcome of this fight is the reason why.
Watch it one more time, because I love the TP from TT, but top esports, the box zone control hurts so much.
And, it just becomes so tough for them to fight as well, because when you get to kite back as an Aphelios, that's your ideal movement. The interesting flash ultimate from Karsa there as well, kind of to discharge them, and then obviously everyone's favorite champion on this patch, the Akali, just coming into style a bit. But I think whatever lead Top Esports could have gotten in that fight in terms of how they're supposed to play their composition, they just got. They kited back with the Aphelios. Once the HP bar was low enough, they went in with the dogpile, top side of the champions with the Akali, with the Xin Zhao, with the Lee Sin, and they just kind of finished up the fight at that point.
And it's a really good look, right? Top Esports had that coordination issue in their first series. You and I were talking about this heavily, both in rehearsal and in our A block before, about how Top Esports, it was a real sloppy start. It was stagnated, and it didn't look like the lane-dominant team. That also were, you know, great team fighters towards the end of 2020. So this is really good target selection, really good decision-making, and a really good start to game number 2. At 16 minutes, a 2,500 gold lead here. 2 dragons under their wing, and we're getting to 2-item territory way before TT will even think of it.
That's the thing, but you take a look on towards the gold, 6-1, 2 Drakes over to the side of Top Esports, and yes, they have a lead, but still at the same time, it feels like TT are able to kind of make it competitive. You take a look on towards the map state, and they still have a lot of towers. Like, there's a lot of this map being opened up for the side of TT that lets them still roam around, that lets them still catch waves and go back to safety to their own tier 2 turrets before they could get caught off. And speaking of caught off, they're trying to catch Knight, but he's Akali.
Look at where everyone is, though. Chillings might come through. There's the Realm Warp as well. They've gone very deep into Top Esports jungle. The Shroud's going to buy some time as well, and QingTian has teleported behind them. They're in a choke. They wanted to be proactive, but now this Lee Sin's ready to kick as Knight's there. The kick as well, not coming through until everyone comes into the wall. QingTian lines them up, and JackeyLove calls to the moon. The beautiful goddess sends down her love, and TT, that burns like hell.
Oh, and they just seem so desperate, TT, when I really think they don't have a reason to. They're still waiting for their 2-item components. They're trying to catch an Akali, one of the hardest champions to catch in this game as well. And it just does not work out for them. You saw the moment as soon as they were caught in that choke point, as soon as the members of Top Esports came raining down on them, there's nothing you can do. Both from close range and from afar with the Moonlight Vigil from JackeyLove. Really hard fight to navigate from TT.
Can't go wrong at this point. It was a nice counterpunch that TT walked into as Patch is walking into the bottom lane. Death Sentence and JackeyLove. A perfect combination. Patch is dead, and Aphelios is about to run into 200 years territory. 3-1-6, 183 CS. This game's been about setting up JackeyLove, and JackeyLove's now set up.
Yeah, and I just talked about how I thought TT was able to let the game remain competitive, but now it just feels like they're just making very emotional plays, really, where they're just feeling like they need to pull the trigger, they need to go for something, when in reality they still have a few scaling champions in their composition that can let them come back into this one, but not if they keep throwing away their leads like this. There's 5 minutes on towards the Soul, and here we get the replay again where they're trying to catch on Knight, but meanwhile they're using so many resources down towards this one. You can see the rest of Top Esports, they're already collapsing. The TP has come through, the rest of the members are just piling in on towards this one, and when they're this stacked going on towards the Akali, there's really not much you can do. Beautiful kick to hit off 3 members, and the AoE damage to come through. There's nothing you can do. Moonlight Vigil to finish it all off, and Sam D, well, there's not long or not much for him to do in a situation like that when he's just 1 versus 5, and they kind of put themselves in that situation as well.
They did. I mean, chasing down the Akali. Another reason why this Akali is such a great pick. You know, it has always been something that's great to watch in competitive stances, where you have the Shuriken flip, you have the Shroud, Q and run away, give yourself movement speed, the Proto Belt in inventory, and then you top it off with the Zhonya's Hourglass. That's 4-5 different techniques you can use on this champion to buy time for the rest of your team to give numbers advantage. So feels nice for Top Esports. Knight has been playing great this series as well. And now they move on to the Baron Guldbord. 7k gold lead. They've got the items, they've got the Aphelios, but they don't want to give a chance for TT to move back in this game.
Yeah, they had the red gun, white gun. I think the reason why they called it off is that they actually don't have a TP advantage right now. Langx does have a TP, so does Xier. So you'd essentially create a 4 versus 5 situation. So they're going to try and find picks instead. Oof.
That was a close little hook there from Zhuo. Moments for Xiaopeng dying away, but Top Esports move into the rush nevertheless. Get away vision, and they'll just keep making this play. They've got good sustain on people like Karsa who can tank it up, so Baron attempt number 2.
Yeah, okay. But they need to be a bit careful. Knight is caught off guard, but I mean, he does have that shroud, and once again, he is just Akali, just moving out there with his ability. Langx, QingTian finally joined the fight here as well, so it is a 5-on-5 situation, but they're very scattered with their members, so they need to be careful if TT just makes a collapse into the pit.
But look, 4.5k, they find the hook onto Patch, flashes away, Gravitum there, Sonic Wave, Resonating Strike incoming as QingTian gets a backline, kick flash onto Sammy, D stands for death this game, as Xier wants to get out with the Realm War, but the Flay comes in. Hip hip hooray! Top Esports, 4 more go down to the graveyard, as they're going to charge it through mid.
Yeah, 10 seconds onto Patch, 20 seconds onto Samdi. I don't think they can go for the end just yet, but they can definitely set up for the Baron. They can get the Baron objective, set up the reset, go for the Drake with the Soul spawning in 2 minutes, and then after that, they should be able to put the final nail in the coffin of TT here.
It's just been exhilarating gameplay from Top Esports finding these fights. It's been punishing TT for walking into them, and 16-2 all of a sudden. When you were talking about TT having an edge in this game, playing it out, getting the Ryze, the Ezreal to that point, that was 3 fights ago when TT were only about 5,000 gold behind. Now we're sitting at 10k, Baron buff in hand, Mountain Soul if Top Esports won it in a minute 15. Looking more and more like a 2-0 every single time we butt heads.
It really does. And you can see they're also a bit scattered from the side of TT because they don't really know what the play is. Patch is getting caught off guard and he's just start hitting up the Raptors here instead. When the hooks initially come through, it's already way too late. And you talked about that flash kick from QingTian. He is really making sure that his name will not be forgotten after a shaky series he had in the first series earlier this week.
And Knight as well, just styling at the end there. He has a Jayce now as well. It's like adding insult to injury. JackeyLove with an Infinity Edge as well. I could keep rattling off items, but you know Top Esports have advantages across all these lanes. We've got CS at a very reasonable number when JackeyLove's keeping up with the clock. So is QingTian as well up in that top lane just about. And because of that, they have so much more gold. Now through mid, they'll destroy yet another turret here and look for the inhibitor as well. JackeyLove just by himself with the Severum at the ready, while QingTian's in the side lane with Knight.
And it's just really easy. JackeyLove can just fuck off, try and get some damage onto the turret, have a Lantern for some safety, and hook comes through, so does the engage.
The Shuriken flip in as well. Knight gets low, but he goes golden until it's 200 years once more. 3 kills. Triple over to Jackie, and now it's time to run it home.
Yeah, an absolute slaughter here. JackeyLove making sure Aphelios buffs are going to be coming nicely on towards the next week where he'll actually going on to 11.12. But this time around, Top Esports, they want more. They want the KDAC on towards Sam D.
He's getting ready, Guldbord. Here we go again. Top Esports in front of the Nexus. Make it flashy, but make it a 2-0 against TT. TES. Run the split the way they should have started.
And there you finally go. You can see them walking on the stage. Way more convincing from Top Esports this time around. But I will say though, TT once again, last spring, finished towards the bottom of the standings. But this time around, in the early game, they're still managing to make it look a bit competitive. And I think they're still having some of the same struggles as we saw in that first series. They have a lot of issues when it comes to the mid game, when it comes to playing the map, when it comes to their decision making. I can see the potential in this team, but it's a matter of how they will execute on towards these problems that they have, and how they're really going to evolve over the course of the split. Because
I don't think the players are that bad, right? We've got Langx up in top lane who I think has always been underrated, and Karsa giving him a bit of a hug before. I will say it was a very weak-willed hug. I guess that was a COVID-safe hug, as safe as you can get. But remember, it was Langx and Karsa who went to Worlds together in 2019. Yeah, it was 2019 because remember 2018 was the Let Me roster with Zatai on it as well, where they almost won the Grand Slam of Grand Slams. You know, old teammates there. giving each other a bit of a hug. And I think it's important to note that, there are good members on this TT roster, as I was saying. Yeah, looks like he has, a bit of that spunk in him too. So I think there's a lot of potential with the roster. The early games look really competitive, but you're right, it just kind of falls apart, and TT got a lot of work to do over the split to make sure they can try and potentially challenge for maybe a last spot.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to they don't seem as confident on comps where you spike on 2 items. You can definitely see they want to be aggressive. They want to be the proactive team, but maybe they should be looking for some more early game spike team compositions than like the team composition we just saw from Top Esports. And while on the subject of team compositions, some very different team comps this time around from Top Esports than we saw from their first game. This was way more meta-oriented. We see the likes of the Lee Sin, the Set coming in, and then we just see, obviously, the Ezreal towards the bottom lane of the map, whereas beforehand, JackeyLove was onto the Varus, on towards the Kalista, and it kind of feels like if you felt like the start of the week or the start of the split was a bit shaky, the most easy champion to pilot down in the AD carry department is just going to be that Ezreal afterwards.
It is the Ezreal, and then when you have a Thresh beside you, I'd argue the Aphelios has a similar feeling, especially when Top Esports were 5-man diving every 5 minutes in this game, and Sam D never really got to play. He fell behind in CS, and JackeyLove and Zhuo just benefit from the laning phase. And even though they were pushing for first turret blood, they end up getting it. They share it between 3 members, but JackeyLove solo turret gold. He ends up doing the most damage in a 24-minute game, and I guarantee you those digits would have tripled if we went 10 minutes longer.
Yeah, for sure. And you could, it's just a mountain out of nowhere. You can see how the game was competitive in the early game as well. Like, this tells the story of TT and Top Esports facing off each other in this early game. It's very much back and forth. But when it comes to the mid game, you can clearly tell that in the experience department, in terms of how much more experienced the players are from Top Esports, there's just no competition between these two teams.
Yeah, there isn't, and I hope the Top Esports continue riding this momentum. You and I talked about at the start as the shaky start here for Top Esports. Again, that has been quelled by this 2-0 as Knight picks up the MVP. Definitely well-deserved. It wasn't a quiet Akali game. We just had a lot of focus towards the bottom line on JackeyLove's Aphelios. And yeah, that's his first MVP, which is unheard of. The fact that 2 series in, Knight doesn't have one, but remember, not a great series against JDG, and Knight starting off the second series really nicely here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, we talked about team composition. I think they got everything they wanted towards this one. The playstyle for them fitted them perfectly. Kiting back with the Aphelios, and then when the time was right, diving in with the Xin Zhao, diving in with the Lee Sin, and of course Knight with the MVP performance, perfect execution, Shuriken flip out of there. It's just exactly what you want to see from an Akali, and it just makes it so much harder to pilot a team compositions like TET when they never get to play around their carries because they're just getting deleted by Knight.
And when you run away from a comp like this, you know it's already too late. You know the Top Esports have the gap closed. They can always follow up here. I love, mentioning that Knight on a champion that has agency in these fights, but more importantly, a champion that has that high skill gap. I know Akali's pretty busted at the moment. She's in a very good place, but still, Akali has the ability to fall off and pretty much do nothing in a game. So it feels really nice to watch Knight succeed, watch him continue dogpiling your words with Karsa a lot of that game. They were a 2-man roaming squad, and that's what I love to see. I love to see Knight and Karsa grouping up together, but I've just been told in my ear, we have a very special interview, Guldbord. It's rare that we get the MVP of game number 2, but we have not.